Hey there, Rednecks, Preppies, Redneck Preppies. It's me, the Redneck Preppy. How you doing today? Great? Good. So when I help someone get into reloading, one of the first suggestions that I make is that they buy more than one reloading manual. I explain to them that why I think it's a good idea, and they usually tell me they'll do so. Then I bump into them a few months into the journey of reloading, and they're still only using one reloading manual or source of data, sometimes because of sticker price shock over books. Sometimes they think their, one source is unimpeachable, and sometimes they're just lazy. At my age, I know when to fight a battle and when to walk away. So nowadays, I just basically nod my head and wish them good luck. But today's video will hopefully explain to new reloaders, maybe not to mention some of you old hands out there, why relying on a single source of data isn't always the best idea. In fact, actually it isn't the best idea at all. It's not a very good idea, and I'll explain why right now. The first should be obvious. Relying on a single source leaves you open to any errors that it has. I found a few instances where a manual has an obvious error in it that I was able to cross-check with another manual. And, for all the editing and vetting that a manual goes through, mistakes happen. That's why manual publishers often publish errata sheets to correct mistakes. That's why you should visit their websites periodically to see if they've updated any of the information for your manual. Another reason is that you may have bought a manufacturer-specific manual, and all of the data ostensibly pertains to that company. Hodgson's Reloading Manual is a great source of data for their powders, but it's only for that company's powders. This Hornady manual is superb, but only if you use Hornady bullets. It's usually a good idea to get a general reloading manual, something like this Lyman, in addition to any manufacturer-specific manuals. Finally, having a number of data sources allows you to research the loads you're working on to see if the recommendations and results that each one makes and what differences there are with them. You'll find that some of the data can vary pretty significantly across the various manuals and sources, and sometimes there's no reason or rhyme why. Let's look at a real-world example of what I'm talking about. Now, I don't think I'm releasing any state secrets by stating that a lot of reloaders, new and old, load the 223 Remington cartridge. It's pretty popular, and you can save some money these days, or making it more accurate than factory loads. So let's take a tour through some manuals and see what the various sources recommend. Now, we'll stipulate some basics. We're reloading the 223 Remington cartridge with a 55 grain jacketed bullet, and we're going to be using Hodgson's H335 powder. So turning to the Hornady manual, 9th edition, we find that the company recommends for most of its 55 grain bullets that we use a minimum 20.8 grains as a minimum charge and up to 23.2 grains as the maximum safe load. Now next, we'll check in with Canadian bulk bullet manufacturer Campro, who also offer a standard 55 grain bullet, and they state that we should use 23 grains as a minimum charge, up to 25.3 grains as the maximum safe load. Okay, we're already getting some disagreement. Let's try Hodgson's annual manual. There we find that bullet with 55 grains in that combination should see 23 grains as a minimum charge, up to 25.3 grains as the maximum safe load. Hey, that's actually the same as Campro. Finally, some kind of agreement. Now, a quick gander at the Lee Reloading Manual. This is 2nd edition 2019. I think this is the latest version. Shows the exact same powder recommendations. Okay, Maybe we're finally getting somewhere. Now let's try spear bullets. They say to use 24 grains as a minimum charge, up to 26 grains as the maximum safe load. Yeah, that didn't last long, did it? Now, Lyman's reloading manual, the 49th edition, this isn't the latest, I think they're up to 50 now, but it's good enough, says that we should use 24.3 grains as a minimum charge, up to a maximum of 27 grains for the max safe load. Okay, well, let's look at one final place. Let's just look at Gordon's reloading tool. Playing around with charges that don't result in low burn rates or pressure warnings, we come up with 24.7 grains on the low end to 26.1 grains on the upper end. That's a lot of numbers. Let's make it easy on my brain and look at a graph. Graphs are fun.
In fact, I made a graph. I make a lot of graphs.
So the quick-witted of you should notice something immediately and interesting. For people like me, I'll explain. I've ordered the recommended charges from lowest to highest, and you can see that the lowest possible charge, Hornady's 20.8 grains, is significantly lower than the absolute highest recommended load from Lyman at 27 grains. In fact, Hornady's maximum load for most of its 55 grain bullets is barely above the lowest possible load for Campro, Lee, and Hodgson, and lower than Speer and Gordon's reloading tool. Oh, and Lyman for that matter. That said, outside of Campro, Lee, and Hodgson, all of the other companies show reasonably significant differences in their recommended bottom and top end loads when compared to each other, especially since we're talking about the 223 Remington cartridge, which is a smaller one by volume, so differences of a grain is actually worth noticing and noting. Now, before some of you old dogs jump into the comments section calling me an idiot for, comparing load data in some cases from different manufacturers of bullets, which may inherently call for different load data, look at this from the perspective of a new reloader. To most of them, a 55 grain jacketed bullet is a 55 grain jacketed bullet. They look the same, they weigh the same, they are the same for practical purposes. So what is a new reloader to do? I can understand a new reloader's frustration at this point. They're told that they should never exceed the maximum charge, and yet here they have multiple and conflicting sources giving them information that's difficult to follow. For them, it's effectively paralysis by too much information, and they probably feel that it would be wiser just to stick with one manual and pretend that no others exist. That said, my wider point on the utility of having more than one reloading manual still holds true. Which one of these powder recommendations is right? 1, 2, all of them? Probably the latter, maybe. Let's remember that we don't know all of the variables of the testing environment that the data providers used. We know the components, the barrel length, and perhaps the rifle that was used, but we don't know all of the environmental variables that came into play. By having more than one manual, you can see the disparity in recommendations and then start to do some of your own research. Now, I'm a person that doesn't see manuals as an endpoint, but merely the beginning of the process. And by that, I don't mean a convenient place to find a beginning to start ladder tests with an end marked by the maximum charge. Rather, I start to do more research by talking to people, by looking at other reloaders' results, and perhaps running combinations through modeling software. With one manual, you can do all of that, but are you as educated as you can be about the road that's ahead of you? All that said, having more than one manual allows you to check them against each other and survey the results that multiple testers in relatively controlled conditions have achieved. That alone, in my opinion, is reason enough to own a few manuals. Now, throughout this video, I've heard some of you, shouting, "Hey, Redneck, it's 2022. We don't need manuals no more. All this stuff is on the web now." And my answer is yes. You can find a lot of vetted and reliable data from the manufacturers themselves online. Several of the companies I mentioned in this video, like Hodgdon, Campro, and Spear, actually publish their load data online. This entire Hodgdon manual that I insist on buying each year is actually searchable on their website. Do remember, though, that their data should be taken as specific, to their products, such as, in that case, powder. But, should be considered general data when it comes to bullets. Links to those websites, by the way, are in the description below. That said, speaking of online, don't blindly trust the load data that someone provides you online. You probably don't know that person. You don't know if they have a habit of, loading safely. And unless they've documented their process, you have no idea if they've actually tested their suggestion. I've seen some very shaky recommendations from one person to another with data that I strongly suspected wasn't actually safe. At any rate, I don't know if I convinced you, but hopefully you see the utility of having more than one source of reloading data on your bench. Whether it's all manuals or a combination of paper and online, mixed in with some modeling software. If you have more than one source, you're better equipped to reload that brass. At any rate, as always, I hope that you found this video to be mildly entertaining and vaguely informative. I hope you have yourself a great day, and may all of your groups be ever tighter. Take care, and bye-bye.